later regret. The same thing is true in our personal lives, that this is a time for action, but it's a time for considered action rather than impulsive, misplaced aggression. You see, when a planet's retrograde, it gets closer to Earth. Mars moving retrograde as it goes opposite the sun on April 8th and throughout this month, Mars is on the same side of the sun as the Earth is. And so Mars looks brighter and redder and angrier in the sky because Mars, the god of war, the god of aggression, of assertion, of combat, Mars is closer to Earth. What does that do? It makes us angry. And if we're angry and things are big and we can't deal with them, I mean, if my life is going on and it's a mess and there's things that I can't possibly make right and my boss at work has been kind of beating on me, I don't mean physically, but, kind of on my case, and I got this going wrong and whatever, I'm going to be frustrated and I'm going to be angry, but I can't take it out on my boss because I don't want to get fired. So I find someone safe to be pissed off at. Like a spouse, or parents or kids or whatever, because they can't go anywhere, or they can. And that can be part of what the problem is here, is we also may see shifts in relationship dynamics that have gone on too long, holding on to a status quo, and now it's time to do something about it. I'm not saying that this is a time to hold your breath. That would be holding on to the shore. It's a time to actually move with the change, but it's also a time to not impulsively and unconsciously lash out at a convenient target or a safe target that's the wrong target. In fact, lashing out and being angry and fighting is not necessarily the most intelligent use of Mars in Libra. Why? Because Libra is not a combative sign. Libra is a sign ruled by Venus. Libra is the sign of relationship. Mars retrograde in Libra is not about going in guns blazing. It's actually going in with a chessboard and saying, let's sit down and play this out logically and see whose ideas are better. Mars in Libra is about strategy. I like to think of when you have Mars in Libra, it's like martial arts because of the art side, the Venus side. It's about the art, the Chinese book, The Art of War. It's not just about who has the biggest guns or the biggest whatever. It's about logically negotiating, allowing for both sides of the relationship to be heard so that growth can occur. And if that happens here, then there can be breakthrough. Remember that Uranus, that lightning striking, it's like an electric shock that releases the tension. So if it can be done right, wow, I never thought of it this way. It's not just this or this. It's not just you or me. What if we do it this way? New idea, breakthrough. And it's Pluto. It's a gradual upheaval, transformation. It's letting go of the control of what's on top and equalizing, making those things which are the most important less important. Nietzsche called that nihilism, by the way. And with Jupiter involved, there's a sense of the opportunity here. There is potential here. Jupiter is in Cancer. This is about the potential of emotional growth. In Cancer, it's about home and family. So this is, if there's only one thing to take away from tonight, it would be this. Oh, and the two eclipses. All right, let's talk about the upcoming new moon and full moon because this date of April, it's actually April 20, on April 19th, the sun moves out of Aries and into Taurus. On April 20th, Jupiter squares Uranus exactly. these are all the Uranus, Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto, and even the moon on the 20th lining up with Pluto. These planets are all close enough to be buzzing for a day or two or three on either side of this. But the exact square between Uranus and Jupiter is on the 20th. And on the 20th also, Jupiter exactly opposes Pluto. And it's not until the 21st that Uranus exactly squares Pluto. So we have that 20th and 21st when this is all kind of tied up in knots, with Mars moving backwards over that point over the 22nd and the 23rd. So that's that scenario. But here's the interesting thing. In astrology, new moons and full moons are like, they're like the tick-tock of the clock. They're like the high tide, low tide. They're the timekeeper of the, of the cycles, if you will. We have a full moon on April 15th. And let me back this up just enough to get this close enough. There we go. 25 degrees, 25 degrees. And let me aspected points, add the moon back into this. No angles. Okay. All right. So now we have the moon at 25 degrees of Libra opposite the sun at 25 degrees of Aries. This is on April 15th. The full moon on April 15th is actually just moments after midnight exactly here in Seattle. So it's just at the very, very beginning of the day of April 15th. And when you see these little points here, these things that look like headphones, these are the nodes of the moon, north node and south node. The nodes of the moon, the Vedic astrologers, the Indian Hindu astrologers, call the nodes of the moon shadow planets. Why? Because they're planets, but you can't see them. So what is it that's there? The moon goes around the earth. Meanwhile, the earth is going around the sun. Where the orbit of the moon going around the earth intersects the orbit of the earth going around the sun, that creates 2 points or a straight line. The nodes of the moon are where the orbit of the moon intersects the orbit of the earth around the sun. It's a magical place. It's a real mathematical point, and it's where the show begins, if you will. It's how things that seem to be physical, material, it's the illusion that seems real, that everything that seems solid, and it has to do with how these waves intersect with each other. So here's the deal. The ancients have known for thousands of years that when the new moon or full moon occurs very close to the nodes, there's an eclipse. Why? Because the plane of the earth going around the sun and the moon going around the earth, when they are in alignment, when the earth and the moon and the sun are all lined up, if it's a new moon, the moon blocks out the sun. If it's a full moon, the earth blocks out the sun to the moon. It casts a shadow on the moon. So we have a full moon eclipse that will be visible here in Seattle, assuming we can get rid of the clouds for an evening, just after midnight, the beginning of the day on the night of April 14th, the beginning of the day on the 15th, the full moon in Libra opposes the sun. Eclipses turn the energy. They're Uranian in as much as like it's lightning. Often it's like flip back to the past to the future. With a full moon eclipse, we often need to give up something. We need to let go. There's a transition involved, and it's very significant that the full moon eclipse on April 15th and the solar eclipse, the new moon eclipse on April 28th, basically contain this whole grand square event that we've been talking about. Let's go back to this a day at a time. So that this grand square event has an eclipse a week before it and an eclipse a week after it. Eclipses are about change. They're about sudden change. They're, again, about releasing tension. A solar eclipse, when the moon is lined up with the sun, and this solar eclipse will be in Taurus because the sun has moved on into Taurus, and the solar eclipse on April 28th occurs at 11:14 p.m. here in Seattle, which means it'll be early on the 29th if you're on the East Coast. But we will not see this eclipse. Why? Because it happens at night, and the moon comes between the earth and the sun, so it will not be visible here. Nevertheless, this eclipse, I think, is really important because it takes some of the pressure off the stuff that's been building. It initiates a new cycle. An eclipse is a new moon. Every new moon begins the next cycle. And this new moon in Taurus is moving the energy away from the cardinal sign